Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today. So, we're diving into a topic that, honestly, nobody really wants to think about until they're literally knee-deep in it. Yep, we're talking about water damage right here in central Ohio. But look, we're not just going to talk about grabbing a mop and some buckets. We are looking at the highly specialized actual science required to bring a property back from the brink of absolute disaster, specifically in the Grove City area. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Just picture it. It's 2 a.m. on a freezing January night. You're fast asleep and suddenly you hear the rush of water. A pipe just burst. The panic you feel right then, it's immediate and it is completely overwhelming. But you know what? Validating that sudden panic is exactly where professional restoration begins. Because when your property is flooding, every single minute counts. I mean it. The difference between a minor repair and a total rip it down to the studs tear out, that is entirely determined by what happens in those crucial first few hours. To get us from that late-night panic to a fully restored home, we're going to follow a really methodical roadmap. Today, we're looking at Grove City's unique water risks, the science of water damage, the three-step restoration process, navigating insurance and claims, and finally, timelines and realistic expectations. Let's jump right into Step 1. Section 1. Grove City's unique water risks. Let's look at why Central Ohio properties face such specific, hyper-local threats.
You know, it turns out your exact zip code really dictates your risk. Grove City sits right in the Scioto River watershed. Add to that Central Ohio's notoriously clay-heavy soil, which, by the way, is absolutely terrible at absorbing heavy rain, and properties near Big Run Creek are practically guaranteed to face seasonal basement flooding. It's like a double whammy. And winter, oh man, the extreme freeze-thaw cycles we get will literally wreck pipes in exterior walls and crawl spaces, not to mention causing those massive ice dams on the roofs of the classic 1960s and 70s ranch homes that are so common around here.
Now, what's really fascinating is how that risk profile completely shifts depending on your exact neighborhood. If you live in an older historic area, say Kingston or Holton near Town Street, your main enemy is aging cast iron drain lines. They can crack with absolutely no warning. But on the flip side, if you're out in a brand new subdivision in Jackson Township, sure, you've got modern materials, but rush construction often leaves you with improper log grading. And that means rainwater just flows right toward your foundation instead of safely away from it. So the vulnerabilities might differ, but the overall risk of water intrusion, that stays incredibly constant.
All right, that brings us to Section 2. The science of water damage. This is where we shift gears from the emotional panic of a flooded house and step into the reassuring structured science professionals use to fix it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the industry standard, the IICRC S500. It makes one thing crystal clear: not all water is created equal. You've got Category 1, which is clean water from a supply line. That just needs fast extraction. Then there's Category 2, gray water. Think of a washing machine overflowing. That requires antimicrobial treatment. But Category 3, that is black water. We're talking sewage or floodwaters from outside, and it is a massive health hazard. If a company ever tries to treat Category 3 black water with the exact same simple drying techniques they'd use for Category 1 clean water, they are leaving incredibly dangerous contaminants right inside your home. Those materials literally just have to be completely removed, no exceptions.
Now, to dry what actually can be saved, professionals rely on a concept called psychrometry. Yeah, it's a super technical term, but honestly, it just means the science of air and moisture. True restoration is not just tossing a couple of cheap box fans into a room and crossing your fingers. Oh no, it requires using psychrometry to calculate your exact dew point, orchestrate something called laminar airflow, and use specific grain depression to physically pull the moisture right out of your drywall and framing.
And this leads us to a huge misconception. Surface drying is what you, the homeowner, actually sees, right? You mop up the puddles, you run a consumer-grade fan, the floor looks dry, so you think, hey, I'm safe. But structural drying, which is what the pros do, uses advanced thermal imaging cameras to find trapped moisture that is completely invisible to the naked eye. It's hiding deep inside your wall cavities and subfloors. Taking a risky DIY approach practically guarantees you'll be calling someone back 6 weeks later when toxic mold starts creeping out from behind that pristine-looking paint job.
So why so much urgency? 1 inch per hour. Let that sink in. That is the exact rate at which standard drywall wicks water vertically straight up your walls. For every single hour you wait to extract that standing water, it is climbing higher, it's saturating more of your insulation, and it's ruining the structural integrity of your building. When they say speed literally saves walls, they mean it. So how on earth do we stop it? Let's move into Section 3,
the three-step restoration process. These are the proven, non-negotiable protocols used to reverse this kind of damage.
This process follows a really strict logical sequence. Step 1 is assessment and extraction, basically finding the hidden water and getting it out of there. Step 2 is drying and monitoring. That's setting up the targeted airflow and tracking the progress every day. And finally, Step 3 is restoration and rebuild, which is patching up that drywall and replacing your floors. Listen, skipping literally any of these steps is just asking for severe, hidden problems down the road. For that first step, the absolute magic number is 60 minutes. Professional crews aim to arrive at your Grove City property within an hour of your call. Because as we just learned, with that scary 1 inch per hour wicking rate, stopping the migration of water early is hands down the best way to reduce how much drywall has to be torn out. And obviously, less tear out directly keeps your total costs down.
So the crucial point is what happens next during the drying phase. It requires some incredibly aggressive, specialized tactics. I mean, professionals will actually pull off your baseboards, they'll drill these little weep holes into the hidden base of your expensive kitchen cabinets, and they actively inject warm, dry air straight into the structural cavities. It looks super intense when it's happening, but this forced airflow is quite literally the only way to reach that trapped moisture we were talking about earlier.
Once the home is finally drying, we hit the administrative nightmare that pretty much every homeowner dreads. Section 4. Navigating insurance and claims. Basically, getting the insurance company to actually pay up.
Let's give you some straight talk about your policy. Generally speaking, homeowners insurance covers sudden and accidental damage. Your pipe bursts at 2 a.m., your water heater suddenly fails, you're usually covered. But what's rarely covered? Natural flood damage from an overflowing creek. For that, you need a completely separate National Flood Insurance Program policy. And this is super important. If your damage is from a gradual leak under the kitchen sink that you kind of just ignored for 6 months, yeah, you can expect a very swift denial from your adjuster.
Here's the secret. Claims get approved when adjusters are handed undeniable evidence. That's exactly why professional restoration companies meticulously document absolutely everything. We are talking extensive pre-cleanup photos, daily moisture maps showing exactly how the home is drying out, detailed logs proving exactly how many hours a specific dehumidifier was running, and line-by-line estimates for everything. When you just hand them the raw science and the data, the insurance company has exactly what they need to justify writing that check.
Which brings us to the final, and undoubtedly the single most common question from displaced property owners. Section 5. Timelines and realistic expectations. Everyone wants to know, how long is this actually going to take?
Look, I need to warn you right now, anyone who promises you a completely dry house in 24 hours is cutting massive corners. Here is the actual, realistic timeline. The first 0 to 4 hours, that's pure extraction, just getting the standing water out. Standard structural drying for drywall and wood framing is going to take a solid 3 to 7 days of continuous equipment running. And if your beautiful hardwood floors get saturated, man, you are looking at 2 to 3 whole weeks of specialty drying just to save them.
So how do they actually know when the job is done? 15%, that's the magic number. True professionals never just touch a wall and guess that it's dry. No way. They use calibrated, deep probe moisture meters to verify that the moisture content inside your wood framing has dropped completely below this strict 15% standard. The equipment simply doesn't get turned off until the instruments prove the science. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. After a leak, is your property truly structurally dry, or is it just surface dry, with a toxic disaster silently waiting to explode inside the walls? You know, understanding the rigorous science behind professional restoration really makes all the difference when it comes to protecting your home. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I will catch you next time.